Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling smaller than when you entered? Not because of what was said, but because of how it was said, how the words were laced with contempt, how the silence that followed spoke volumes. Disrespect doesn't always come in the form of outright insults. Sometimes it's the subtle eye roll, the dismissive tone, the way someone interrupts without even realizing they've done it for the third time that hour. It creeps into relationships, friendships, and workplaces, wearing different masks, but carrying the same weight. And yet, so many of us hesitate to confront it. Why? Because we fear confrontation. We worry about being labeled difficult or uncooperative. We tell ourselves it's easier to let it slide, to avoid rocking the boat. But at what cost? Respect isn't just about politeness, it's about boundaries, self-worth, and the silent understanding that your presence matters. When someone crosses that line, whether intentionally or not, they're not just testing your patience, they're challenging your right to exist in a space where you deserve to be treated as an equal. And the problem is, once that boundary is blurred, it becomes harder to redraw. You start questioning yourself. Was I too sensitive? Did I overreact? The internal battle begins, and suddenly, you're the one doubting your own instincts instead of holding others accountable for their actions. This struggle isn't new, but it feels more pressing now than ever. In a world where digital interactions often replace face-to-face conversations, respect has taken on new forms: passive-aggressive comments buried in text messages, backhanded compliments disguised as humor, the silent treatment delivered through unread messages. These modern nuances make disrespect harder to call out, harder to navigate. And yet, the consequences remain the same: diminished confidence, emotional exhaustion, and a slow erosion of self-respect. So how do we reclaim our power? How do we stand firm without becoming combative, without sacrificing our peace for the sake of maintaining a fragile harmony? This isn't just about learning to say no, it's about mastering the art of asserting yourself in ways that protect your energy, reinforce your boundaries, and remind the world that your worth isn't up for debate. 1. The power of silence, a weapon without words. There is a moment in every conflict where words feel inadequate, when explanations only fuel the fire and reactions give the aggressor exactly what they want: control. In those moments, silence is not passive, it is defiance. It is the refusal to engage in a game designed to wear you down. It is the quiet assertion that you will not be provoked, that you will not allow someone else's negativity to dictate your emotional state. Silence, when wielded correctly, is a declaration of strength. It strips the disrespectful of their power by denying them the reaction they crave. Consider the workplace, a place where egos clash, where some people thrive on dominance rather than collaboration. Imagine a scenario where a colleague habitually undermines your contributions. They interrupt during meetings, dismiss your ideas without consideration, and subtly imply that your work is less valuable. You've tried speaking up politely, explaining your perspective, but nothing changes. Then, one day, you decide to try something different. When they cut you off mid-sentence, you don't scramble to restate your point. Instead, you pause. You meet their gaze, not with anger, but with calm certainty. You don't speak. You don't flinch. The room grows still. Your silence stretches longer than expected, and suddenly, the dynamic shifts. The person who once felt emboldened by your reactions now falters under the weight of your composure. They look around, searching for reassurance, but find none. The tension forces them to reconsider their behavior, not because you lectured them, but because you refuse to play their game. This is the essence of silence as a tool of self-respect. It is not about avoidance, it is about control. People who disrespect others often do so because they expect compliance. They anticipate defensiveness, apologies, or desperate attempts to justify oneself. But when met with unwavering silence, they are left disoriented. Their aggression loses its impact when it meets no resistance. Silence forces them to sit with their own behavior, to recognize that their tactics have failed. It is a psychological shift, one that reminds them that you are not someone to be manipulated. But why does this work so effectively? Because silence disrupts the usual cycle of conflict. Most arguments follow a predictable pattern: provocation, reaction, escalation. By removing the reaction, you break the chain. You refuse to grant the aggressor the satisfaction of seeing you rattled. In doing so, you assert your independence, your ability to remain grounded despite external pressures. It is a powerful reminder that you are not defined by how others choose to act toward you. Silence also serves as a mirror. When someone behaves disrespectfully, they often do so without fully acknowledging the impact of their actions. By refusing to engage, you force them to confront their own behavior. They may not admit fault immediately, but the discomfort of being ignored, or worse, being observed without judgment, can be a catalyst for change. Over time, consistent use of silence can reshape how people treat you. Those who once sought to dominate conversations or belittle your efforts begin to realize that such tactics no longer yield results. They either adjust their behavior or fade into irrelevance. This approach is not about being cold or indifferent. It is about protecting your energy. Every interaction carries weight, and choosing when to expend words and when to withhold them is an act of self-preservation. Silence allows you to reclaim your power without descending into hostility. It is a testament to your self-awareness, your ability to respond with intention rather than instinct. And in a world where verbal battles often leave both sides drained, silence stands as a quiet but formidable alternative. 2. The freedom of not explaining yourself. There is a moment in every life when you realize that not everyone deserves an explanation. It might come after years of justifying your choices to people who never truly listened, after exhausting yourself trying to make others understand decisions that were never theirs to question. And then one day, you stop. You simply say, "Because I wanted to," and walk away. That single act, refusing to explain yourself, is more than defiance. It is liberation. It is the moment you reclaim your autonomy, asserting that your life does not need approval to be valid. The need to explain ourselves often stems from a deep-seated fear that if we don't justify our actions, others will misunderstand us, judge us, or worse, reject us. But here's the truth. No amount of explanation will ever satisfy those who are determined to find fault. People who question your choices aren't seeking understanding. They are searching for validation that their own fears and insecurities are justified. When you step outside the expected path, whether in career, relationships, or personal growth, you challenge the comfort zones of those around you. Your confidence unsettles them, and so they ask questions, not to learn, but to control. Consider this story. A woman decided to leave a high-paying corporate job to pursue a passion she had long ignored. She was met with immediate resistance. Friends questioned her stability, family members expressed concern about financial security, and colleagues subtly implied she was throwing away a promising future. At first, she tried to defend herself, listing reasons why this decision was right for her. But no matter how detailed her explanations, the doubts remained. Then, one evening, someone asked the same question again. "Why would you leave such a good job?" And instead of launching into a rehearsed defense, she simply said, "Because I wanted something different." Silence followed. Not because the questioner was satisfied, but because there was nothing left to argue against. She had taken back the power by refusing to engage in a debate about her own worthiness to choose her path. This is the essence of not explaining yourself. It removes the battleground entirely. When you stop justifying your decisions, you deny others the opportunity to dissect them. You shift the dynamic from one of defensiveness to one of quiet confidence. You are no longer asking for permission. You are declaring ownership over your life. This doesn't mean you become closed off or uncommunicative. It means you recognize that your choices are yours alone to make, and you refuse to let others dictate what should or shouldn't matter to you. But why does this feel so radical? Because society conditions us to believe that our lives must be curated for public consumption. We grow up being asked, "Why did you pick that school? Why didn't you take that promotion? Why are you dating them?" These questions may seem harmless on the surface, but they reinforce a dangerous precedent that our decisions must be approved by others to be valid. In reality, your life belongs to you. Every choice you make, whether it's changing careers, ending a relationship, or simply deciding to spend a Saturday doing absolutely nothing, is enough because you chose it. Learning to stop explaining yourself isn't easy. For many, it feels unnatural, even selfish. But consider this. When was the last time you saw a truly confident person breaking down their decisions for others? Rarely, if ever. Confidence isn't about convincing others. You don't need external validation when you already have internal certainty. When you stop explaining yourself, you begin living with a level of self-assuredness that few can match. You stop wasting energy on justifications and start pouring that energy into actually living the life you want. This approach also protects your emotional well-being. Every time you explain yourself, you open a door for doubt, for criticism, for unnecessary second-guessing. By contrast, when you simply state your choice without justification, you close that door. You send a clear message. My life is not up for debate. And in doing so, you free yourself from the burden of proving your worth to those who never intended to see it anyway. 3. Creating space, the power of distance. Sometimes the most profound act of self-respect is walking away, not in anger, not in retaliation, but with quiet determination, as if you've finally seen the full picture and realized that some people simply do not belong in your world. Keeping your distance from those who disrespect you is not an act of weakness. It is a declaration of self-worth. It is recognizing that not everyone deserves access to your time, energy, or peace of mind. And perhaps most importantly, it is understanding that stepping back is not abandonment, it is preservation. Imagine a relationship where you constantly feel like you're apologizing for existing, where your presence is met with sarcasm, where your efforts go unnoticed, and where every interaction leaves you questioning your value. You tell yourself things will change, that maybe if you try harder, if you explain yourself better, the dynamic will improve, but it never does. The disrespect persists, subtle yet insidious, chipping away at your confidence until you begin to believe that maybe, just maybe, you deserve it. And then, one day, you decide to stop giving that person space in your life. You limit contact, you create boundaries, and suddenly, the weight lifts. You breathe easier, you sleep better, you remember who you were before their negativity clouded your perspective. Distance has a way of revealing truths we often ignore. When we remove ourselves from toxic interactions, we gain clarity. We begin to see patterns that once seemed normal: constant belittlement disguised as humor, backhanded compliments passed off as advice, passive aggression mistaken for personality quirks. These behaviors, which once felt like inevitable parts of the relationship, now stand out in stark relief. And with that awareness comes empowerment. You no longer have to tolerate disrespect simply because someone has been in your life for years. Blood does not obligate loyalty, and familiarity does not demand tolerance. You are allowed to protect yourself, even from those who claim to care about you. This isn't about cutting people out forever. It's about creating space to heal. Sometimes all it takes is stepping back to realize how much better you feel without certain presences weighing you down. Consider the friend who always finds a way to make everything about themselves, who interrupts your stories, dismisses your struggles, and turns every conversation into a competition. You used to brush it off, thinking that friendship meant enduring imperfections. But after months of feeling unheard and undervalued, you decide to pull away. You stop initiating conversations, you decline invitations, and slowly but surely, the relationship fades. And instead of mourning its loss, you feel relieved. You realize that true friendship should lift you up, not drag you down. Or think about the colleague who thrives on undermining others, making snide remarks under the guise of constructive feedback. Their words sting, not because they hold any truth, but because they carry the weight of constant repetition. You've tried addressing it, setting boundaries, even going above their head, but nothing changes. One day, you decide to stop engaging. You keep your interactions strictly professional, you no longer entertain their commentary, and you focus your energy elsewhere. Over time, their influence diminishes. They no longer have the power to rattle you because you've stopped giving them room to do so. Creating distance is not about revenge. It is about reclaiming your peace. It is choosing to invest your time in people who uplift you rather than those who drain you. It is allowing yourself to exist in spaces where respect is not earned through effort, but assumed as a given. And most importantly, it is recognizing that sometimes the healthiest response to disrespect is no response at all. Just the quiet act of removing yourself from the equation. Letting go of guilt is often the hardest part. Society tells us that we must be forgiving, that we must give people second chances, third chances, infinite chances. But here's the truth. Forgiveness does not require continued exposure. You can forgive someone without letting them back into your life. You can wish them well while still protecting your boundaries. Walking away does not make you cold or cruel. It makes you wise. It shows that you value yourself enough to know when something is no longer serving you. And in that realization lies freedom. The freedom to surround yourself with people who see your worth, who celebrate your successes, who support your growth. The freedom to live without constantly second-guessing yourself, wondering if you're doing enough, being enough. The freedom to exist without apology, without explanation, without the burden of trying to earn respect from those who refuse to give it freely. So yes, keep your distance. Let go of the relationships that drain you, the friendships that feel more like battles, the workplace dynamics that erode your confidence. Create space for the people who remind you of your strength, who inspire you, who make you feel like the best version of yourself. Because in the end, respect begins with how you treat yourself. And sometimes, the most powerful way to show yourself respect is by simply stepping away. 4. Standing tall. The quiet rebellion of confidence. There is a moment when you realize that confidence is not something you earn, it is something you claim. It is not granted by others, nor is it dependent on external validation. It is a posture, both literal and metaphorical, that says, I am enough, regardless of what anyone else thinks. Holding your head high is not just about physical stance, it is about carrying yourself with the unwavering belief that you are worthy of respect, regardless of whether others choose to give it. And in a world where disrespect often masquerades as authority, criticism, or casual humor, this simple act becomes a quiet rebellion, a refusal to shrink, to apologize, or to pretend that your presence is anything less than valuable. Consider the moments when you felt disrespected. Perhaps it was in a meeting where your ideas were dismissed without consideration, or in a social setting where someone made a joke at your expense. Maybe it was in a personal relationship where your feelings were minimized, your boundaries ignored. In these situations, the instinct is often to retreat, to lower your gaze, to soften your voice, to hope that if you make yourself smaller, the disrespect will somehow lessen. But the opposite is true. The more you shrink, the more space you give for disrespect to thrive. The more you hesitate, the more power you hand over to those who seek to undermine you. Holding your head high disrupts that cycle. It is not about arrogance or defiance for its own sake. It is about embodying the truth that you are not defined by how others choose to treat you. When someone tries to belittle you, to question your worth, or to make you feel small, your response is not to fight back with words, but to stand taller, to look them in the eye, to speak with calm assurance, and to carry yourself as if you already know exactly who you are. Because you do. And that knowledge, that inner certainty, is something no one can take from you unless you allow them to. Think of the people who exude confidence effortlessly. They do not apologize for taking up space. They do not flinch when challenged. They do not feel the need to prove themselves because they already know their value. And interestingly, these individuals rarely face the kind of disrespect that others endure. Not because they are immune to criticism, but because their presence commands a level of respect that cannot be forced. It must be earned. When you carry yourself with dignity, when you refuse to be shaken by the opinions of those who seek to bring you down, you set a standard. You declare without words that you will not tolerate anything less than the respect you deserve. This is not about ignoring reality or pretending that disrespect does not exist. It is about refusing to let it define you. It is about recognizing that confidence is not the absence of doubt, but the ability to move forward despite it. It is about knowing that your worth is not measured by how loudly you assert yourself, but by how consistently you remain grounded in who you are. And most importantly, it is about understanding that respect begins within. If you do not respect yourself, if you do not believe in your own value, then no amount of external validation will ever be enough. So the next time someone tries to make you feel small, resist the urge to fold inward. Instead, take a breath, straighten your spine, and hold your head high. Look them in the eye, not with hostility, but with the quiet assurance of someone who knows that their words hold no real power over you. Let your posture speak louder than any argument could. And in that moment, you will not only reaffirm your own worth, you will remind them that respect is not something they can take from you, it is something they must choose to give. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, do well to click like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more insightful videos, and don't forget to click on the notification bell so you can be notified when next I post subsequent videos. See you on my next video. Bye.